Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to this Easter second half. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's second half, shall we? Today's first part of the upload. A few years ago, my friends and I went on a 45-mile, 3-night kayaking trip down the Green River in Kentucky, which runs above the Mammoth Cave System, the world's longest known cave system with more than 400 miles of surveyed passageways. We brought everything we needed in our kayaks and one canoe. Food, tent, water filtration system, etc. We camped each night on a riverbank when it started to get dark and we found level enough ground. The first night was uneventful, except to say there was nothing like a wall of fireflies against the mountainous, black tree line at night in the middle of nowhere. The second day, around sunset, after a long day of kayaking and baking in the July heat, we came upon a stream on the bank that opened up into a large ravine. The stream, as we found out, was a cave spring, pouring out blue, freezing, cold cave water into a lagoon. About 30 feet wide and so deep the blue water turned black after a few feet. The lagoon had a long sandy beach secluded by hills on either side and a tall overhanging cliff behind and above us. It was a beautiful, otherworldly place. Time moved very slow there. We decided to camp there for the night. The sand was soft, white, and very fine. Ideal for ground sleeping. For some reason, the place deeply frightened me, but I didn't speak up. We were all tired, and everyone was having fun. We built a small fire and enjoyed the stars through the leafy canopy for a while before everyone went to bed. I slept hard that night. At around 5 in the morning, I woke up with the urge to relieve myself. It was still dark. I had the tent door zipper about halfway open, and I had just popped my head out when I heard a loud and terrible roar/scream. I immediately cowered back into the tent and zipped it closed and waited. The scream came from about 10 feet to my left, near the dwindling fire. It was a high-pitched, but not like an owl scream, although I'm not ruling it out. It was a wretched, pained scream that got lower pitched at the end. Now, being that we were in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, most likely it was a fox or a boar or some kind of bird. Whatever it was, I lie awake for an hour listening. I heard absolutely nothing. Granted, we were on a soft beach, but I didn't hear a single twig snap or a leaf crinkle when whatever it was finally shuffled away. It was bizarre. I should mention at this time that up the beach and off to the side of the lagoon was a small, dry cave opening, maybe 3 feet wide. I can't say with any certainty that it is not some ancient cave-dwelling creature that surfaced to investigate our camp. I somehow fell back to sleep and awoke the next morning shaken. I asked any of my friends if they heard the scream, and no one had. We pressed down the Green River. The third night, at dusk, we came upon a large rocky beach. We pulled our boats ashore and decided this would have to be done. as we didn't want to go further downriver, risking being stuck in the water at dark. This rocky beach was where the river split into two, and in the middle formed a collection of pale rock, tall grass, dried out wood, a desolate pile of muck the size of a football field. The landmass was covered in jumping sand spiders and tiny frogs, again otherworldly. We set up camp, ate, and all went to bed around the same time. It was silent for probably 20 to 30 minutes. I'm not really sure. I was asleep, as the others most likely were. Suddenly my dream was interrupted by what sounded like a booming, loud, mechanical wooden beast. I awoke and shot straight up. It was truly the loudest thing I had ever heard. It sounded like a massive bulldozer tearing down a huge steel and wood building. Then came a boom, followed by its echo throughout the river valley. The animals shifted and the birds flew away. We were all awoke by this crash and yelling in confusion to each other in our tents. Eventually, we all decided that it was just a tree falling and went back to sleep. The next morning, I thought about it some more. It didn't sound like just a tree falling. It almost had a roar-like quality. We found no evidence of anything out of the ordinary, so we packed up and headed out onto the river one last time to head home. My friends and I still talk about that trip. We did the same kayak trip a couple years later, and nothing out of the ordinary happened. No mysterious forest noise. Now, really quick, what's creepy about this is if you Google Mammoth Cave to Land Between the Lakes, it's the river. You're traveling on that river. It's pretty much a straight shot. It's a 2-hour car ride, but I'm imagining it's faster traveling by water. Definitely some creepy area right there. There's been numerous Dogman and Sasquatch encounters in Mammoth Cave, and we all know about the Land Between the Lakes, the many stories that have come out of there. But yeah, wow, that's, I don't know if I'd really want to kayak that. How about you? Today's second encounter. To preface, I grew up in the rural woods of the Midwest. My grandparents had a cabin on 160 acres in the Ozarks, and my family home was in the woods of Ohio. I now live out west in a large city with my husband and kids, but his family has a cabin in northern Idaho, where we would spend a lot of time in the summer. That's where this all took place. So, when I say I know the woods, I really do. This happened a few years ago in the middle of summer. We had arrived at the cabin only to realize my husband somehow had totally spaced out and forgot to pack my hiking boots. I was livid because all I had was a cheap pair of flip-flops, and I had been looking forward to going hiking that weekend. It kind of put a sour mood to the evening, and we settled in. The cabin isn't much, and, though in the woods, is part of the community or cluster of other cabins. The one perk to ours is that it's right against a large field surrounded by woods. It's private property, and there's some weird stories and history with the family that owns it. But the field is mostly abandoned. We have a 4-foot barbed wire fence that runs the length of the field to separate our land from that. It's not too far from the cabin, I'd say maybe 20 feet from our porch to the fence line. That night after dinner, I made up the air mattress for the kids and folded out the sofa bed for us. Soon, everyone else was asleep, but since I have horrible insomnia, I was still up at around 2 a.m., reading my Kindle and sipping my wine when I heard the most god-awful noise outside. I slipped on my flip-flops and poked my head out the front door. There was a sound coming from the field. I stepped out onto the porch to listen more intently. It's the sound of a coyote being hurt. At first, I thought it was possibly stuck in a trap, and I got so angry. My husband's family are known for our dogs, and the idea of someone trapping near us made me so angry. I can't tell you how or why, but every cell in my body was screaming for me to help it. I ran inside to get the flashlight. It was a new moon, so zero light outside. And, once again, found myself upset because I didn't have my boots. There was no way I was going to make it, even to the fence line with my flip-flops. Between the woods and the terrain, it was happening near the corner of our property. That can be the best called the trash heap, abandoned camper, woodpile, metal drums for burning, etc. I had no idea what I could even do to help, but I just so badly felt like I needed to do something. So I went back outside. All I could do was listen. The more I listened, the more I realized it was being attacked by something. And that's when the hair on my neck stood up. I realized everything was dead quiet. I've never before or after heard the woods like that. Whatever was attacking that coyote was doing it silently. No snarl, no bark, no yip or growl. And as I stood there frozen and listening, I heard the final noises as the coyote died. I had tears in my eyes because it was such an awful sound. As soon as it died, I was hit with a force of sounds around me. Suddenly the neighbors' dogs were howling and barking, the bugs and crickets started up. It was like a switch had been flipped. It went from no sound to all of the sounds in the blink of an eye. That's when I heard the footsteps. Whatever had attacked the coyote was suddenly on our side of the fence. It was walking along the fence line and clearly bipedal. I can't stress this enough. I grew up in the woods. Humans and animals sound different, and this sounded bipedal. It was clearly walking on two legs. I kept staring along the line, trying to see whatever it was. But as the footsteps grew closer to the middle of the property, and still I couldn't see anything, I panicked and quickly ran back into the cabin. I locked the door, grabbed a hatchet, and woke my husband up. I couldn't believe he was able to sleep through everything. He hadn't heard a thing. The next morning, we went directly to where I told him the sound was coming from, the attack, but couldn't see anything. Though the field at this time of year is 4-foot-tall grass, we didn't expect to see anything, and I was not about to hop that fence and go looking for trouble. I will say I have never been so thankful for not having boots that weekend, because without a doubt I would have tried to hop that fence that night. I just know I would have. Something in me was screaming out to make it stop. Anyway, I'm sure I'm rambling a bit. I felt so alone for this for years. My husband believes me, but, we have no logical answer. Today's third part of the upload. A couple nights ago, I saw something I still can't fully understand or explain. First, a little background. I live in mid-Michigan in a small residential suburban town surrounded by cornfields. You know the type. However, I do live in a more populated area as my parents' house, where I currently reside, is located within walking distance from our downtown. Our street is by no means desolate, dark, or isolated, and most of the houses are fairly close to one another. A pretty urban setting given the town itself. Okay, back to the other night. It was about 2:30 in the morning, and since it's pretty normal for me to be up late, me and my dog have developed what I call our little routine. He comes to my door, lets out a huff to inform me that he's there, and then we go downstairs, where I let him outside through the front door to go to the bathroom. After completing his business, he comes in and we share a midnight snack of ham straight from the fridge. Now keep in mind my dog is extremely well trained and very old. He doesn't need a leash or a fence to keep him from running away. He always comes right back after he's done. He'll even wait at the door if you're not there. So on this particular night, I open the door for him, and I'm just about to turn and walk away so I can prepare our midnight snack when I notice he's still standing on the porch, staring across the street. This isn't completely out of the norm for him, but this was lasting a bit longer than normal. When he finally jumps off the porch, I follow his line of sight, where he has been staring, and I see what looks like a large dog or maybe even a wolf slinking across my neighbor's yard on the other side of the street. For the first few seconds, I'm trying to figure out what the hell this thing is, because it looks like it could be a dog, but something's not right. It's too long, and the way it's moving is not normal. And even though it's only about 50 feet away, it looks like it's blurry. I can't think of another way to describe it. Nonetheless, none of this made sense. At this point, I go into panic mode because so far this creature hasn't seemed to notice me or my dog, but if it does, my dog doesn't stand a chance. Like I said, he's old, and also a Pomeranian. Whatever this thing was, it would destroy him with no doubt. I decide to slowly open the outer glass door, hoping to create just enough noise to alert my dog that it's time to come in, but not enough for whatever this thing is to hear me. Luckily, my dog notices right away and starts running back toward me. But at the same time, this dog creature starts turning toward me as well, and slowly. It almost felt fake how unnatural it moved, like animatronics or something. I'm not even sure what I'm looking at, but I have this indiscernible feeling that I'm not supposed to be seeing it. So as this thing is turning to look at me, my dog is coming through the door simultaneously, and for about 1 second I take my eyes off this creature thing to look down at my dog and close the door. When I look back up, this thing has moved about 30 feet to the left into my neighbor's driveway rather than their yard, and is standing on its hind fucking legs at around 7 to 8 feet tall, staring at me. Now I'm really freaked out. How did it move so quickly, and how did it not make a single sound? How's it so tall? I literally looked away for maybe a second. I look away again and lock the door and gather myself, only to look again and see absolutely nothing. It was gone. This whole ordeal only lasted maybe 20 to 30 seconds total. Shaking, I give my dog his ham and mine, and I run downstairs to my brother's room in the basement to tell him what just happened. Being the normal 19-year-old and playing video games, his response was, "Wow, that's super weird." But honestly, I just need to tell somebody to confirm that what just happened actually happened, and that I wouldn't wake up the next day and convince myself it was a dream. Over the last few days, I've told anyone who would listen about what I saw, including my parents. Those who are closer to me seemed a bit more unnerved because, like I mentioned earlier, I don't usually believe in this type of thing. They could tell I was shaken by whatever I saw that night. Tonight, after some random Googling as a result of my restless mind, I came across what appears to be the exact description of what I saw, the Dogman. But now I am fully convinced I saw one in front of my very own eyes, and it saw me too. Today's fourth encounter. This experience was told to me by my cousin. We were swapping spooky stories at my uncle's cabin when he told me this one. He and two of his friends decided to take off for the weekend to go camping. They grabbed their gear, food, camper van, and drove out to the mountain range. They checked the forecast beforehand, and it said it would be sunny with no precipitation for the duration of the weekend. It's mid-January. As they're setting up camp, Dave says he's going to eat some magic mushrooms and go on a vision quest. The other two laugh it off and tell him to be careful and not to wander too far. A few hours pass, and Dave is yet to return. As it's starting to get dark, he emerges from the bushes with a puzzled look on his face. He explained that his trip was going just fine until he turned and realized he had lost track of the path. He stumbled around the forest for what seemed like an eternity in a thought loop. It wasn't until he stumbled and fell that he realized he was going in the opposite direction of camp. He turned around and doubled back. As the evening sets in and the crew is getting ready to call it a night, it starts to snow. Then it starts to really snow, blizzard even. They pack everything in the van and decide to leave the next day. At around 1 or 2 in the morning, Jake wakes up covered in goosebumps. He climbs out of his bed and wanders around the van, first checking to make sure it's locked. It is. He turns around and tries to look out the window. It's completely frosted over. As he's trying to make out anything at all, a feeling comes over him like there's someone or something looking directly back at him from outside. He dismisses it and goes back to bed. The next morning, they're awakened to the snow coming down. Jake, still thinking about last night, walks around to the window he felt uneasy at. To his horror, there are bipedal tracks leading up to the van window. but none leading away. He runs and tells the friends. They agree to get out there ASAP. They get to the nearest gas station, still very remote. Their van breaks down. As they're trying to figure out what to do, this fella drives up and pumps and says, "We haven't seen weather like this in 20 years. You boys be careful out there. Something's not right." Then he drives away. Out of nowhere, this large, dark red van pulls up directly in front of them, and the driver gruffly says, "Hurry up, get in. I'll take you to the nearest town." With a little hesitation, they get inside. As they drive, he starts going faster and faster until they reach speeds not recommended for winter. Sure, they're going to die. Ghost white, speechless, they ride. He gets them to the nearest town, opens the door, and says, "Hurry up, get out." They oblige, and before they can even think to thank him, he pulls a U-turn and drives back the same direction they came. They later found out that the first man they talked to at the gas station drove for a couple of kilometers only to meet his demise via a head-on collision. It's a crazy world we live in. It's a strange story. It comes from a very honest person as well. He wouldn't have exaggerated the details. I'm also intrigued by the guy who drove them out of there. Very mysterious. This would be somewhere near Jasper National Park, Canada. Alright, let's jump into a little bit of the paranormal secret society part. Today's first experience on the paranormal side. It's been about 4 years since I was filming a documentary about paranormal group. I was called last minute to gear up and join them on an investigation. It was a 4-hour drive to their client's home, and I wasn't really feeling like filming that night. The group that evening consisted of 3 investigators from the group, one of them being a medium that I trusted 100% and I've worked with for many years. The owners of the house had claims of there being loud sounds coming from empty rooms, things being moved, and an uneasy feeling at all times. The power had been disconnected from the house, so we had to use external lighting and power. The investigation started about 9 p.m. that evening, and from the time of pulling up, my camera was rolling. When I exited the vehicle and started walking into the home, my Masonic ring had turned around on my finger by itself. I didn't think much of that until later in the evening. When I entered the home filming the group, it sounded and felt like someone was underneath the house with a hammer hitting where we had just stepped in the home. The investigators heard and made note of this and caught audio on the camera as well. Let's fast forward to about 11 p.m. that evening. The medium was getting a calling to head to one of the back bedrooms. We all sat down, lining against the wall surrounding the room. She asked me to dim the lights on my camera. She started talking with the entity who was there, and that's when things became very strange. She tells me at this point that the spirit is attracted to me for a specific reason, and that he bears the same marks as I do. Let me be clear when I say this. I was only filming. I'm not part of the paranormal group. The only ties I have to the group is filming the documentary. Now I'm a very colorful human, not only with my artistic side, but also with the art that I proudly display on my body. Yeah, tattoos. The medium tells me that he's bending down, pointing at my left leg. Just so happens I have a Masonic emblem on my leg. I begin to ask her if he is a Mason, and I break down and start crying and shaking uncontrollably. The only way to describe my feeling is happiness, sadness, calmness, and energized all into one emotion. After getting my composure back 10 minutes later, she tells me, yes, he is a Mason like you. Now, if anyone knows anything about Freemasonry, you will know that there are a lot of secrets and unspoken words that only the men of the organization should know. Medium tells me the spirit's background. He was a German immigrant that moved to the United States in the 60s. His name was Aldo. He built the home with his own hands, married for 50 years, had cancer. Wife had been trying to poison/kill him for insurance money. Wow! She tells me that he feels comfortable with me and has been waiting for years for me to get there. I ask the medium what he wants with me. She explains that he wants to know that it's okay to pass on and wants to hear it from me. So I tell Aldo, if you're ready to pass on, you may. The medium says that he left something under the house while building he wants you to have. It had been raining when we got there. Mud was under the home. I just didn't want to climb under the house in the middle of the night, though I did. Within a 48-inch area, they told me to look. I started digging with a garden tool, and I pulled up a rusty, mud-covered wooden square. I pull it out and rinse it off and show the medium. She tells me that's exactly what he wanted you to find and says you will know exactly what it means. So again, I tell Aldo if he is ready to pass, he can. The medium looks directly in my eye and says he's not going anywhere but with you. He's your guide, guardian angel. Now, I'm a very skeptical person, but what happens over the course of the next few years is intriguing. Days after the investigation/filming, I'm on my way to my local tattoo parlor. When I drop my phone in between my seat and the door, I'm looking down and not paying attention to the road. With a strong force of air blowing on the side of my face, I then realize I'm drifting into the other lane. I have just enough time to react and get into my lane before a transfer truck plows into me and I almost died. On another occasion, I was going to a get-together where there were plenty of adult beverages to knock out a college fraternity. I had only been there for 15 minutes when I heard this voice as clear as day that tells me to leave now, in a stern father voice. I ignore it and resume hanging out with my friends. I had planned on riding back with a group of friends that night. Hear this voice in a much louder and stern tone. You need to leave right now. So I got into my car and drove home that evening. I got a call not an hour later telling me that all of my buddies I was supposed to ride with that evening had died in a car crash. On my move to California, I was very sleepy around Arizona and New Mexico border. I heard the same voice tell me to pull over and rest. Now, it only took me one time to hear this, and I did. I remember seeing this minivan following me with a rack on top and a surfboard attached to it. I was awoken 30 to 45 minutes later to sirens of police, fire, and ambulance. When I came to my senses, I got out of my vehicle and asked the local state patrol what had happened. He said there was a van that had wrecked and killed 3 other people in other vehicles around him. The driver had fallen asleep at the wheel. Now, if you ask me if I'm still skeptical, I would say that I am. The entire time I've been around paranormal investigating, and in some pretty haunted places, I just need to see proof. Is there life after death? Some may say yes. I'm really on the fence about that. I can't explain a lot of what's happened or things that have gone on around me. I'm just aware that I've been put here for a reason. If not filming and painting a picture of someone, maybe I'm here to tell my story. Today's second experience on the paranormal side. This happened to me when I was in college, probably one of the creepiest and weirdest things that's ever happened to me. I do believe in ghosts, and I've had countless experiences in my life that have made it almost impossible for me not to. This still gives me chills whenever I think about it. I was a freshman in college and was heavily involved in the arts, theater, and music specifically. The Fine Arts building of my college had quite a bit of history. It was built in 1916 and had previously been one of the largest Masonic temples in the city. This is fairly evident by the Masonic symbols adorning the building and covering the stained glass windows. I had heard rumors of secret passageways under the building that ran all the way into downtown, but I will say I didn't believe them. A few of my professors had told stories of seeing shadow people or feeling like they were being watched when they were alone, but I thought they were just messing with us freshmen. I spent most of my time in the costume shop. I should note the costume shop was on the sub-ground floor, technically the basement. It was down 2 flights of stairs from the main entrance that led you to a landing with the costume shop and another door that I just assumed was a utility closet because it was always locked. I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was just something off about it to me. On this particular evening, I had finished rehearsal for a play around 6 p.m. and figured I'd do a bit of cleaning in the costume shop while I waited for my roommate to meet me so we could grab some dinner. I was inside the costume shop when I heard a knock at the door. I walked over and looked out of the small window to the right side of the door, expecting to see my roommate, but there was no one there. I opened the door and stepped out looking around. I looked down the hallway to the left of the door to see if my roommate was hiding, trying to freak me out. Nothing. I shrugged it off as me being tired and went back into the shop and shut the door behind me. I went about my business for a bit until I heard another knock at the door a few minutes later. I was more hesitant this time. I walked to the door again, looked out the small window. Still, there was no one outside. I tried to open the door, and while the handle turned, the door would not budge. I pulled harder, thinking maybe the door was stuck, but it didn't feel like that. It felt that someone was holding the door shut on the other side. I looked out the window again and still did not see anyone. I was now frantically pulling on the handle, feeling the fear rising in my chest. I let go of the handle, only to have it start shaking wildly. Suddenly it stopped. Everything was quiet, with the exception of my own shaking breath. Then, from outside of the door, I heard a sound. The sound of the door creaking open. I gathered my strength and tried the door. It opened, and I cautiously walked out onto the landing. The always locked door was ajar. I called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" I tried not to sound freaked out, but I was absolutely terrified. I pulled open the door and was greeted by a pitch-black staircase leading down. It smelled like a tomb that had just been unsealed for 100 years, musty and ancient. I felt the wall for a light switch, but could not find one. I reached into my pocket for my cell phone and turned the screen on. It was bright enough that I could sort of see as I made my way down the stairs. The walls were brick and the stairs were made of stone. The closer I got to the bottom, the colder it had become. I was on the second to last step, straining to see what was in front of me. It was a door, a large stone door. I was about to move to the last step when I heard it, a voice. It was deep and sounded like it was right in front of me. It said only one word: "Welcome." I couldn't even scream. Instead, I ran up the stairs, tripping at one point, skinning my knee and my shin. Once I reached the top, I slammed the door shut and ran out of the building. My roommate showed up 5 minutes later to find me standing on the sidewalk shaking. I had told her what had happened. She went inside to get my things and locked the costume shop's door. When she came out, she looked at me with a worried expression. "That door was wide open when I went to get your stuff. Are you sure you closed it?" I just nodded my head. We walked home and didn't really talk about it anymore. I didn't go back into the building until the end of the next week. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. When I finally did, I descended the stairs and felt a chill shoot through my body. I looked at the wall where the door had been, and there was nothing there. It was just a wall. I thought I was losing my mind. I walked to the wall and studied it. My drama teacher happened to walk by, and I stopped him. "Wasn't there a door here?" He chuckled. "Yeah, they walled it up last week. They did it in a hurry as well. Not entirely sure why, though. I always thought it was a closet or something. I can't say what I encountered that night. Was it the spirit of a Freemason who never left their temple? Was it something more sinister? I honestly don't know. I spent a lot of time in that building over the course of my 2 years at that college, and while I had other odd experiences, they were nothing compared to what I experienced that one awful night. Today's third experience on the paranormal side. I was a maintenance worker at the campground resort in the Appalachian Mountains for several years. It was more like a rich glamping resort with luxury cabins that had been renovated, but the place still had an old and rustic feel to it. It was miles from civilization and super peaceful, especially during the down season. The resort was originally built during the roaring 20s at the height of Prohibition. The Appalachian Mountains were infamous for moonshining operations, and I'm pretty sure that the resort was the center of it all back in the day. There was a locked safe room hidden underground where they used to store the shine, as well as secret passages underneath some of the oldest cabins that were also used to store the illegal liquor. In its heyday, the resort was visited by numerous members of high society that came to party with the forbidden spirits hidden underneath the resort. One night towards the end of spring, before our busy season began, I was starting to become close with the new tourist manager of the resort. Her name was Kate, and on that night she wanted to sleep outside under the stars, but it had started raining. I suggested we go and sleep on a screened-in porch on one of the old cabins that had not been renovated yet. I thought it'd be a pretty good compromise, and we could fall asleep to the sound of the rain falling. Hey, who says romance is dead? After we got everything set up and did the old in and out, it was sometime past 2 a.m. She had fallen asleep in my arms instantly, and I lied there unable to fall asleep. I was worried that I was going to disturb her because I usually toss and turn when I have a hard time going to sleep. I figured we had been lying there for over an hour when I heard what sounded like a door inside the empty cabin open and close. It was either the bedroom or bathroom. Both had very old doors that squeaked really loud and struggled to open and shut. I knew they had to be oiled or replaced when we renovated that cabin. My first thought was that it was our boss, the resort's owner's son. He is super nosy and has been trying to get in the new girl's pants ever since he hired her. He is also very demanding and entitled. I wouldn't put it past him to fire me if he knew the two of us were seeing each other. Yet, I didn't know why he would be sneaking around the resort at night or how he would have known we were there. It was a good-sized resort. I proceed to hear footsteps coming from inside the cabin towards the door to the screened porch. I lie there as still as I could, waiting for the door to open and have my boss lose his short temper when he discovered us. I prayed that he would walk away and not find us, but nothing happened. There were no receding footsteps and no more door noise. I stayed up the whole night and didn't hear another noise come from the cabin. There was nothing there except for me and Kate and the empty cabin. The next morning, Kate rolled over and immediately asked me about the footsteps she had heard the night before. Apparently, they had woken her up, and she also stayed up all night trying to figure out where they were coming from and who they belonged to. She was terrified and would never go near the cabin again. Unfortunately, I had to go back to the cabin at night. Part of my job was making sure all of the lights were off and everything was shut down in the empty cabins at night. My boss liked to turn the lights on the empty cabins to give the appearance like the resort had more guests than we really did. Every night I had to go there. After that, I always felt a sense of dread as I walked towards the cabin. I think it's because I never figured out what was inside of there that night. That cabin had never been renovated during the 4 years that I worked at the resort. There was always some excuse that the project manager had for delaying the renovations. I didn't mind, but I hated to go inside the cabin at night. Inside the living room of the cabin, there was a huge 175-pound swinging bed on chains that could be lifted up or down to make space for the guests staying in the cabin back in the day. Every night, I went to the cabin after we heard the footsteps. I would open the front door of the cabin and find that bed swinging on its own like someone or something had just got out of the bed before I got there. Today's fourth experience on the paranormal side. I want to preface by saying that I do not fully believe in ghosts. In fact, I have been trying to avoid any conversation about ghosts or anything supernatural simply because there is no solid evidence to support them. I personally have had such experiences with the unknown as a kid, but I don't think they are relevant to what I am going through now. But anyway, here's what I'm going through. Up until the COVID pandemic started in February of 2020, I was studying in a high school and lived in its dormitory. The dormitory itself was quite old. It was built before World War I, so at least it's 100 years plus. But the problem I had with the dorm was not the fact that it was old and dusty. It's the atmosphere of the whole building and the people living in it. I do not like to use this word, but there is definitely negative energies coming from there. One student even committed suicide in the bathroom, but no one cared. There was a kind of environment I was exposed to for way too long. I lived there for nearly 4 years and never felt comfortable. I always longed for summer and winter vacation so that I could go back home. On January 16th, 2020, I had a so-called panic attack for the first time. Not sure what triggered it, but I suspect it's the stress I'd been going through just living there. I was in my room at the dorm and immediately rushed to the nursing center at the school. They just told me to just drink some water and lie down. They thought it'd go away, but it did not. The next day, they took me to the ER and took a urine and blood test to make sure that I was not on drugs, but nothing abnormal was detected. They just told me that I'm stressed and that I should take care of my health. Also around this time, I started to have intense, heavy headaches and tinnitus 24/7. I completely lost my appetite, sex desire as well. I became an insomniac. Moreover, my hands get extremely cold all of the time. I thought I was going crazy. I could see things through my eyes, but everything seemed so distant. Those symptoms especially got worse at night. I actually became afraid of the night because of it. I also started to have nightmares where I was dragged from my legs by a woman with so many bruises and cuts. I am trying to describe what I've been going through, but when I put them into words, they really don't cover it. It's not like normal pain when you get the flu or the cold. There's no word to describe them. As soon as the winter vacation began, my parents took me to some good new neurologist because I thought I may have brain injury or something. They took blood tests, MRIs, x-rays. But once again, the results came back normal. I've been prescribed so many kinds of painkillers, but none of them have worked. I was so devastated that I became depressed from the pain that I had been constantly going through. But from the Western medical point of view, I'm healthy, at least on paper. I'm still seeing doctors regularly, but they just gave up on me. It's honestly sad. Fast forward, it's been 2 years since I had my first sign of symptoms, and pretty much everything remained the same. Not even a single improvement whatsoever. My parents are super worried about me, and they have pretty much done everything they can do to help me. But all the doctors I have seen just told me that I'm stressed. I've even tried TMS and Emgatli, but they did not work. I was just so disappointed. I'd rather die than live with this much pain. About a week ago, my mom made a confession that she had a similar experience when she was exactly my age. My mom is Japanese and grew up in Iwate, Japan. She lost her mom when she was 17 years old, and she started to show symptoms that I have been having for the past 2 years. Her family thought she went insane from the death of her mom, but when her uncle saw her at my grandma's funeral, He was shocked by how my mom was being possessed by demonic spirits. She said that her uncle was the only one that could understand what she was going through at the time. He took my mom and my granddad to the Shingon Buddhist temple a few days after the funeral. There were different sects of the Buddhists in Japan, and only some perform exorcisms, and they could only be performed by a few trained monks. There, the monk immediately recognized what was wrong with her, and he performed an exorcism ritual. She told me she doesn't remember much of what he did, as she could not comprehend what was going on. But the monk tapped the back of her neck or something. She immediately got better after that. The monk told her that she is sensitive to those entities of nature. He even told her to practice and study exorcism at the temple after finishing high school because she is closer to these entities than many people. But my mom was so afraid of those things that can't be explained that she refused the offer. She told him that she wanted to go to college and have a normal life. I asked her why she didn't tell me about her experience much earlier. She told me that she was hesitant because she knew that I did not like talking about those things and that I only want to rely on Western medicine. Anyway, I bought her experience despite the fact that I did not want to believe it. Thankfully, my great uncle was still alive at the age of 80. We contacted him a few days ago and he said I should get a ritual done as soon as I could. He also told me that sensitivity to ghosts and spirits is hereditary, and that people like me and my mom are more prone to directly get affected by them. She told him what I was going through, and he is convinced that I have caught some kind of demonic spirit inside of me. I'm going to meet up with him later this month. Long story short, I'm going to the temple in northern Japan to get an exorcism ritual later this month. Today's final experience on the paranormal side. I really don't believe in the paranormal, but lately I've been thinking about experiences I just cannot explain. Some preface, I'm Native American, but it's only been this year my mom got in contact with the family on the res. She went up to the res for a week to talk to them and came back with a lot of interesting stories and some parallels to my life. The shades and gray man, if I'm remembering correctly, are what they called the hallucinations we have. I've had stress-induced hallucinations my entire life, and so had this side of my family. But we all see the same things. A shade is like a tall, spindly, faceless creature with no hands or feet, just points. At least generally that description. And the gray man are these small, gray faces of men that we see in the dark. Probably self-explanatory, I know. My great-something grandmother was psychic. If anyone actually ends up being interested in seeing this, I'll try to find some more info. But she apparently located the head of a missing person. Not much to say about her right now. My family drains batteries. I can't find any explanation for this. Honestly, I don't have to believe it. I've always broken electronics really fast. But I am unobservant and clumsy. My mom's stuff breaks too, but I guess she can be clumsy as well. But when my mom visited the family, she brought a camera. Apparently, the battery died faster than it should have. She hadn't even really used it at all. I'm sure there's a rational explanation, so when I visit in June, I'm going to try some experiments. I always had a thing that followed me up until I was 9, and I called him the Pit Man. And when my mom told them about it in my room got saged, that's fun. Honestly, just curious what you guys think about this. And there you have it, folks. I do hope you all enjoyed today's second half as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you, and I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go. and honestly what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there and dangerous. Share this information with those who you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.